Yes, yes, yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I am so happy to see all of you here. I know we're supposed to start at 2:22. Well, this is idle time. What can I tell you? Because then the reason it was 2:22 is that today is 10/22/22. So we're started 2:22.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense to Christian. Anyway, this is a fundraiser for Spirit Mountain Retreat, which is a very special place, a very healing place in a place that is, we kind of call it the heart of Idlewild. And we're so very happy that you're here to help with fundraising for us. And we are eternally grateful to Christian, who has put this whole shebang together. And one housekeeping thing. Restrooms through that door, there's one in the hallway and there's one in the kitchen. Okay, so if you need to go that way, that would be fine. Other than that, I think that's the only housekeeping. If you're interested at all in getting more information about Spirit Mountain, we have things in the back. Our upcoming events, we have a lot of stuff going on. In fact, in December, we have a winter solstice in here. We also have a service of solace with the Interfaith Council. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of things that we're doing. But we're so happy you're here. So happy you're here. Let's see. I think that's it. Without further ado, I will introduce Christian Chalifour.
I'll explain later. Take it. I was supposed to have a juggler open for me, but he didn't. Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope the rest of the people will find their way here. I don't know how many of you came up. Most of you probably came up North Circle, right? But did you happen to look in your rearview mirror? This storm they're talking about?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's there. It's a big one. Yeah, they're predicting 40 miles an hour sustained winds here tonight with gusts to 55, 60 or more.
Right.
85% now chance of rain through midnight tomorrow night, and a high temperature today of only 58 and 54 tomorrow. So even if we didn't get rained out at Spirit Mountain, it was going to be cold and windy anyways. I feel much better here. There's also something very serendipitous about being here because my actual spiritual beginning began in the Episcopal Church when I was 2 years old. Well, I was baptized actually in Syracuse, New York in 1951. And they have high and low Episcopal Church, like Roman Catholics, have high and low churches. So ours was a high Episcopal Church. We had Stations of the Cross, and we had incense at all the services. So when you're 4 years old and you're cute and you're blonde, they make you what they call the boat boy. The boat boy carries a little brass boat full of frankincense and a little gold spoon, and you walk alongside the censer. His name was Harold Getman. I still remember that from 65 years ago. And we stop every so often, and he raises the thing, and there's 3 burning coals there, and we put a little frankincense on top of the coals. And I'm 4 years old and playing with fire. I'm having a great time. And all kind of went downhill from there, but more on that later here. I'm going to have to look to my friendly neighborhood because the playlist that she printed out for me is so small that even me
Okay.
need glasses.
Almost, yes.
We did the welcome.
Is that helping?
We did it had to be you. Okay, I see it now.
You see it?
Most everything you're going to hear today is on one or both of my CDs. It took me 20 years. I started doing this in 1977. And the man most responsible for that has passed away, but through the miracle of video, he will perform a 4-minute piece for you later on in the concert here, live from the great beyond. And it took me 20 years after that to get an album out, and I finished it, and I called my mom, and I finished the studio session, and I said, I finished it, and the first words out of her mouth were, "It's about time." So I said, that's going to be the name of the album. So sure enough it is, and it's back there. How many of you, show of hands, already have one or both of my CDs? Quite a few of you. That doesn't surprise me. I was disappointed last concert a year ago that we did with the orchestra because I asked Mary, how'd we do? And she said, well, we sold 2. And I'm thinking, 2? I says, wow. And then I realized that most of the people, we had 110 people at that concert last year. It was really fun. And we didn't get rained out or anything. And I realized that I got home thinking about it. And I said, well, 3/4 of those people had already had my CD. They bought it when I played in front of the post office or Cafe Roma or any one of the, I've been doing this here in Idlewild since 1995. Off and on, I've been here for 12 years. And this is I'm not living here right now. People ask that. I'm actually down on the Salton Sea in a very obscure place called Desert Shores, population 400. Whole different world down there. It's like living on the dark side of the moon. It's very interesting, and I'm dedicated to a project. Restoration of the sea is really important down there. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, a word from our sponsor. Oh, yeah, okay. So how did this all begin? You don't just walk in into a music store and say, I'll take that harp right there. Okay, $55,000. Okay, write check, right? Okay, and deliver it tomorrow. No, it wasn't like that at all. It started in 1951. I was hatched at St. Joseph's Hospital in Syracuse, New York. And my parents were professional photographers on the side. My dad worked for General Electric. And my mom, she took the portraits, the photographs, old reflex box camera, 4x6 plate film that you put the plate, turn it over, images upside down on the camera. So when I was old enough to walk, I found out my dad did all the darkroom work. He developed the negatives and the printed, and then my mother would take the finished prints and she would hand color them with oils. It's an old technique. It's an art that's long gone. I don't think anybody does it anymore, but she was very good at it. And on the poster that some of you may have seen for this concert, there's a little baby picture in the upper left-hand corner. Well, that is me. I didn't know that my grandmother had submitted me to the Gerber people for the Gerber baby. I didn't make the finals either. But they also didn't tell me, and I didn't find out until my friends in the 8th grade, 8 years old, 2nd grade, told me Gary Chalifour's baby picture bare ass naked is in the quarter page ad in the Syracuse Yellow Pages on page 64, and it was an ad for the Children's Studio, which was the name of the photography studio. So I had to live with that for a long time. So then we moved to Alaska. We visited the year it became a state in 1959. 4 years later, we moved there, and like lightning, everything just started falling into place and happening. Kennedy was shot in November. 2 months after we got there, we had a 9.2 earthquake that lasted 5 minutes. Largest quake ever recorded in North America. I was 12 years old. And all this happened real quick. I did not do music in school. I didn't do the school band or the orchestra. I took piano lessons. I liked the Beatles and I liked Rodgers and Hammerstein. And that was kind of my start. And Harp came along in 1977. My path crossed that of Lloyd Lindroth, who all hands down, Liberace the Harp, and you'll kind of get that impression when you see him. And that pretty much brings me to the present day. After 14 months, I placed third in the second annual International Pop and Jazz Harp Festival in Santa Barbara. And I went out on a cruise ship. I stayed out at sea for about 3.5 years, saw most of the civilized and some of the uncivilized world as well. And I landed here after a year in Japan. I came here in March of '94. And March in Palm Desert is beautiful. Yeah. I had one friend who moved here the year before. And but then came July, and it was 120 degrees, and I said, I'm from Alaska, I don't do this. And I was all ready to pack up and leave Southern California. But someone said, no, let me take you to a place an hour from here where you will feel right at home. And so we came up on a cold, wet April day, raining. Granny's Pies. Anybody remember Granny's Pies in the port? Yeah, well, we went there for cranberry apple pie before she sold out to Trader Joe's and all that. And I said, this could be any small town in Alaska. I'm going to park right here. I'm an hour from the desert and 2 hours from San Diego, and God forbid I should have to go to LA. It's negotiable, So, before I got here, though, I was in Seattle for a while.
I'm going to interrupt you, Christian, for 1 second. I'm going to move the hat
Okay.
off the cello.
Mr. Cello won't mind.
I don't think he would.
The hat does have significance, though, so put it on top
of this.
Chink hat there.
You,
Rice River's hat.
yeah,
I'm a hat person.
yes, okay.
In fact, to this day, there's a $100 reward for the return of my Polish fisherman's cap, if anybody finds it. It was last seen in the Community Presbyterian Church 4 years ago. I figured it'll turn up in a thrift shop.
Keep looking.
In 1993, I was living in Seattle, and Harold Prince was putting together the third national tour of Phantom of the Opera. And how many of you have seen Phantom of the Opera live on stage? Mary just saw it.
I just saw it last week.
For the first time ever. You're a Phantom virgin.
No,
I won't tell you how many times I've seen it. Anyway, he was playing in London, he was playing in New York, and there were 2 national tours out there. And Hal Prince said, I'm going to start a third national tour. So we chose the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle to do that. Well, they planted the show there for 4 months because they want to tweak it and make sure that it looks like all the other Phantom productions. So no matter where you go, you see the same show. And the harpist that was playing with the 30-piece orchestra that was under contract to play those 4 months had to go do something in Vancouver, BC for 3 weeks. I was a union musician at the time. They called me up. They said, can you come in and play Phantom for 3 weeks? And I said, do I need to bring a harp? No, just use the one there in the bid. So I signed the contract and I go there on Saturday morning at 10 in the morning. And my plan is to, this was back still in the 80s when Broadway show music was still kind of like top 40. You actually heard it on the radio. So I knew some of the songs and stuff. So I said, how hard can that be? So I'm sitting there in the pit, which is all divided up for sound reasons and stuff. And I get to number 16A. It's the title song, Phantom of the Opera. It's the disco hard driving scene. The stage is got beautiful fog on it. And it's the scene where he's bringing her in the boat across the lake down to his lair. Okay, so Well, in order to create that beautiful fog lake effect, they flood the stage with 600 pounds of dry ice for 4 minutes. Now, dry ice is really nice. It hugs the floor about 12 inches. It's 110 degrees below zero, and it's just a beautiful carpet of fog until it hits a sharp edge, in this case, the front of the stage. And there's only one place it can go. Into the orchestra pit, completely obliterating and wiping out everything. Nobody can see anything. So I'm looking, I get to that number in the score and I'm looking through it and it says tacet, T-A-C-E-T. That's Italian for a shut up and you know play. And harpists are used to that. You know, triangle players have to sit away for 5, 6, 7 measures at a time and hope that the conductor remembers they're even alive. You know? So I said, okay, well, let's see what the strings are doing. And I go over to and they don't have anything for that number either. And the woodwinds don't have anything. And finally, the rest of the orchestra starts coming in about 1:15 for a 2:00 performance, and we're tuning up. So I'm asking, hey, what's going on with number 68? Oh, you'll find out. And so we get to that spot. And whether you saw that show in New York or London or Las Vegas or on the road, that number, the instrumental portion of it is on tracks. It has to be. They told Andrew Lloyd Webber, if you want your beautiful lake effect, you're going to have to sacrifice the orchestra for those 4 minutes. Then when that 4 minutes is clear and he's at the pipe organ, I have brought you to this place where music is, then we're live again. So I went through 8 performances a week for 3 weeks, having never seen the show. I knew sort of what it was about. So they gave me a free ticket. I sat in the front row the next night after I didn't have to play. The lady came back and I said, wow. This is really pretty incredible. So I had a medley, but I'm just going to play All I Ask of You today. I was told a long time ago when they intermittently what happened in between after I got to Palm Desert is I came here at 44 years of age with the intention of sort of retiring, the R word. Well, I know now, and I'm sure Dottie can vouch as well. Musicians don't retire. No, musicians diminuendo until you fade away to nothing. Okay, but you keep playing right to the end. Okay, that's the way I want it to. I'm 71, so do the math. Okay. Okay, I'll throw this out, and if you have already participated in this little quiz, then you don't get to participate. But if you have not done this before, then you get a free CD if you can name The person, male or female, who originated this tune, that's all I'm going to say, okay? And I won't give you any more hints. Well, maybe a couple, okay? Everybody remembers the famous shot of the sailor kissing the nurse in Times Square in 1945, at the end of World War II? Okay, same time, same month, August, the Les Brown Orchestra wanted to record this song 2 years earlier. They did not because of the musicians' strike in New York during the war, but as soon as the war was over, they went into the studio and pulled a completely unknown singer to sing this tune for them. No fair Googling it while I'm playing. Anybody got a clue? I'll give you another hint. His or her initials for their first name is the same as their last name.
Doris Day. Doris Day.
Doris Day it is.
Yes.
You got your free CD waiting for you. Cool. Yes, and then she went on to do all those ditzy comedies in the 60s. Oh, I gotta tell this story just because your kids are so well behaved. Are you missing one? I thought there were four of you. Oh, okay.
Over here.
This is so funny. And this is no reflection on you because I can see your absolute perfect children, right? Yeah. I was one of the last people to see Yul Brynner do The King and I live on stage 30 days before he died in 1985. It was at the Pantages in LA. It was a matinee. And I was in the front row of the balcony, so I had a pretty good look at the lower half part of the audience in the orchestra. And there were three kids, and they were boys, I might add, and they were kibitzing. And it was one of those quiet little scenes where, I think the king is sent for Mrs. Anna in the middle of the night because he's confused that Moses said the world was created in 6 days, and he wants to write a letter to Abraham Lincoln to send him the elephant so he can win the Civil War. Yeah. And it was just one of those quiet little scenes where there's not a whole lot going on. It's just on the king on stage. These kids are kibitzing, talking amongst themselves to the point where it's beginning to annoy the audience, okay? Well, Mr. Brynner, without breaking character, leaves Mrs. Anna just long enough to walk down stage. He points out at them and he says, "Is it that you have something to say? For if it is, I wish that you would say it, for I can hear you better than I can hear me." Those kids were not there after intermission. I suspect their parents had dropped them off, while they went to do something else. I will never forget that as long as I live. The man did that role almost 5,000 performances in his 40 years or so. I'm going to do something classical. We like to borrow from the classics. I am not a classically trained harpist, and thank God. Piano music is fun to borrow from. This is going back, 117 years ago. In 1905, Claude Debussy wrote a four-movement suite called the Suite Bergamasque. And this is the third movement of that suite. And it sustained such popularity, everybody wanted to play it, that it kind of became familiar on its own. And you hear it quite often without the rest of the suite, just this one piece. And Victor Borge used to introduce it as clear the room, or clear the saloon. An unidentified person will get their chance to come up and try this shortly. It's okay. I said I wasn't gonna do any jokes, but this one's too good to not tell. So this is attributed to Harp Marx. Nobody really knows for sure. But it seems that there were these two gentlemen they met in a bar, and one was named Frank Sam, and the other was named Sam Frank. And it was just, they were amused at the coincidence that they sort of shared, surnames and first names and everything. And Frank Sam was a really good soul. He did wonderful things his whole life. And when he died, he went to the pearly gates and was welcomed into heaven. Sam Frank kind of dabbled in darker things, and he wound up in the other place. But they wanted to stay in touch with each other. So Sam Frank decided to open a disco, and he invites Frank Sam. He says, "You should come down here Saturday night. We're going to have one hell of a time, and bring your harp with you while you're at it." So Frank Sam takes his harp and goes down to that place, and sure enough, he has one hell of a time until 6 a.m. and the sun comes up and the bells are ringing, and he in his haste he has to leave the harp behind. So he ends up at the gates, the pearly gates, and St. Peter asks the obvious question, "Son, where's your harp?" "I left my heart in Sam Frank's disco." That's it. That joke's been around at least 60 years. I don't know where it came from, but it's forgive me. I know not what I do. It's time for my special guest. It said at the bottom that our special guest to be announced. This lady's very special. She came along to me a year ago when I started to form my own orchestra after conducting Coachella Valley Symphony for 16 years. I walked away and I started my own smaller chamber orchestra, and I started a branch up here in Idlewild because I was living here at the time. And Joanna came from Anza. That's where she lives with her 3 husbands and three horses and husbands. and she's just really a lot of fun and enthusiastic. And so I think you need to come play with us. So we're going to lay a couple of pieces on you here. This first one was actually written on the condition that it not be played until the composer died. It's part of the Carnival of the Animals, and is the Swan, but it became so popular, and you'll notice the Swan banner over here that Mary told me the story of, but I don't remember, so I won't ask her to.
St. Hugh of Lincoln is the patron of swans.
Is the patron of swans.
Yes.
And there seems to be a castle under his wing or something?
Well, he became a bishop, and when he became a bishop, the swan showed up and was his pet for all the years.
And the Lincoln is
I don't
from
know.
Lincoln, England.
I think so.
Apparently there's a Lincoln, England,
I
for
know.
which all our Lincolns, including Abraham, are named, I guess, or something.
I don't know.
I had no idea. You learn something every day. Anyway, this movie became so popular that he allowed it to be published in his lifetime. So Camille Saint-Saëns, French composer, wrote this, and this is The Swan. It's written for cello and orchestra, but we're doing it obviously on harp and violin today. Are we ready? piece is also from a collection. It's called, it's from a piece that was written in 1975 by Claude Bolling, who I like to think of as the Henry Mancini of France, about the same time period. And he wrote some wonderful, wonderful music, including his suite for flute and jazz piano. Now, he specifies in the cover inside, he says this is to be played by a classical flute accompanied by a jazz piano. And it was recorded in 1975 by Jean-Pierre Rampal, who was pretty much all hands down the finest flutist of the time, and the composer, Claude Bolling. And we actually had the chance to play, not this movement we're about to play, but another movement from it, for Rampal. When he came through Anchorage, he just did a concert series in Japan. He was exhausted. He gets off the plane, does a 2.5-hour masterclass in flute, and we're watching 5 flutists get absolutely crucified by this god of a flute teacher. And we're sitting there in the front row, and we had asked him if there's any time left, can we possibly play the Bolling movement for you? And says, he nods at us, and we go up and we play it. And he's nodding approvingly and smiling. And when he's all done, when we're done playing, he says, in his very thick, almost impossible to understand accent, he says, "You must realize that when Monsieur Bolling and I recorded this, it was not on paper. It was in our head. It was jazz. However, now that it is on the paper, you should play what you see, unless it says improv. And there are sections that say improv, and other sections that say straight, play what you see." So this is a short little jazz waltz called Earlin Days, way back in the Earlin Days, I like to think of it as. And obviously it's not flute and piano, you're getting violin and harp today. So. This is also the only album in history that I know of that simultaneously in 1975 reached top of the charts in both jazz and classical genres simultaneously. this brings back a lot of memories. Oh, before I forget, did everybody end up with a card?
Yes.
I wanted to do a program, okay. In lieu of a program, there's my info at least, if you need to get a hold of me or you want to get a hold of me. I do have 2 more albums coming out. One I had completely forgotten. I actually did do one 14 months after I started. I started in October of 1977. I had 3 lessons with Lloyd, and he had to leave. That was the end of his tour in Alaska. And I'd seen the commercials all summer long, and I had no more interest in the harp than I did in repairing a lawnmower. It just didn't occur to me at all. I have the same preconceptions most people have about harp. I think of one of 2 things: either angels at the pearly gates with wings, or how many of you think about a woman in long flowing hair and a long gown, in the symphony orchestra? What makes you feel any better? I used to be one here. So anyway, Palm Springs joke, yeah. Where am I going with this? Good question. Oh, anyway, after I started, I wanted to give just an informal people an idea of how I was progressing. So I did a very simple cassette recording. I had my brother come into the music store where I was working at midnight. We figured that would be as quiet as it's going to get in downtown Anchorage. This is in 1978, and I just called it Harpist Dawn, like Dawn of the Harpist. And I made 100 copies of it on the slave cassette duplicator at the church that was used for duplicating sermons. Now they do it all on CDs, I guess. And I sent it out to, I gave it to my friends and family, people at church, and that was about as far as it went. So now, 45 years later, I find the one surviving copy of this. My sister kept it. And so she has sent it to me, and as soon as I get it, I'm giving it to Brian Harnell, the guy that owns Audio Wild Studios here in town. And he's going to beef it up for me. It's told there's narration with it and stuff. And I'm going to release that as a 3rd album. And then I am going back into the studio, his studio, in April. And I'm going to do, this album's going to have Marshall Hawkins is going to join me on bass for a couple of tracks. I'm going to do some flute and harp stuff where I'm doing both parts on different tracks. I'm just going to have a little more fun with a multi-level kind of a recording. So. And that brings us to what, my dear?
How about, can you read my mind?
Can you read my mind? Okay. This is my John Williams story. Yeah, you notice that the part of what it says here, join us as Christian shares his music and tall tales
Yes.
from nearly half a century of travels. Well, the good thing about not having visuals to accompany things is you don't know how tall some of these tales are. So I can stretch things a little here and there if I want. It's called color, that's what I'm writing my memoirs finally. I'm sitting down and I'm starting to do an autobiographical account of everything's happened. And I was shooting for my 70th birthday because we had all this downtime with the pandemic, and I figured perfect time to write. Well, it didn't quite happen. So now I'm giving myself in 4 more years until I'm 75. And that'll be 50 years of the harp. And concurrent with that, with publishing that, I'm also going to produce a one-man show where I basically play myself playing a multitude of instruments. And I'll hire probably 1 actor and actress to play all the male and female people who have influenced my life. My parents, Leonard Bernstein, when I was 9 years old, I got to meet him backstage at Carnegie Hall. And I'm going to make a multimedia presentation out of it. Video, images, slides, a little bit of everything. I might even tap dance, who knows? I might even play the cello, which I'm still trying to get up the nerve to do. It is on the program today, but I'll need your encouragement to allow myself to lower my standards enough. Yeah, you get it. Okay, can you read my mind? I was playing this in the lobby of the Sheraton Anchorage. I played Sunday brunch there for many years. And I'm playing it one January morning. January in Anchorage is typically minus 30, minus 35 degrees outside. And the brunch ran from 10 to 2 every Sunday morning. And I played solo just by myself from 10 to noon. And so the people that wanted it a little quieter came then. And then at noon, I was joined by a upright bass player and the drummer, and we played as a trio. So I'm just starting off the set. the very first thing I'm playing is this Can You Read My Mind with the love theme from Superman. And I'm aware of this character maybe 75, 80 feet away, and he's standing by the front door looking very out of place. And this lobby is like decorated in 24 karat gold plate and jade staircase, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful lobby, you know. And they're setting up the brunch. The waitresses are still putting out silverware and stuff like that. People are just being seated. And I'm playing this piece, and this guy's wearing jeans with one hole in one knee and a t-shirt, clean enough, but just looking very out of place. And he sits on the corner of my stage. I'm thinking to myself, guy's got a lot of nerve, but that's okay. And he said, "Oh, you're playing one of my daddy's songs." And I didn't quite know what to make of that. I'm thinking maybe I'm playing a song his father likes or something. You know? Well, he introduces himself as Mark Williams, and I said, "Are you one of John's three sons?" And he says, "Yes, I'm the youngest. Joseph and John Jr. are my older brothers." And I said, "What are you doing here in Anchorage, Alaska?" He says, "Well, I've been a drummer with this 6-piece rock band for the last 2 months." And he only played Tuesday through Saturday nights in the lounge off the lobby, and I only played Sunday brunch on Sunday morning, so our paths never crossed until that moment. And we get talking, and he says, "Would you like to come down to meet Dad?" Yeah, I'd like to come down to meet Dad. So I dropped everything I was doing after the brunch, and I bought a ticket on the same flight he was on, and came down, and I spent 3 days with them in their home in Beverly Hills. Now, these are from his first marriage, the Bel Air, actually. And all I can say is that for a man that writes all this mega music, you know, and the list goes on and on. Yeah, it started kind of with Star Wars and Jaws and E.T. and Harry Potter's, and it just goes on and on and on. Man has had more success than anyone I know in the film world. But he is the most quiet, soft-spoken man. You know, he talks to his musicians. If they're not quite together, he'll just rap on the stand. Tutti, people, tutti. That means together, you know, stay together. And so he let me look at his scores in his library at home, and I found the Superman stuff from 1978 and said, "Would it be all right if I kind of took some ideas from this and came up with my own arrangement?" And he said, "Of course, go right ahead." So here is Can You Read My Mind? And this is on the first album, actually. Just And I don't know if any of you got to see it, but if you go to, I think it's just called soundstage.com. And it's the LA Phil's podcasts of what they do, and they keep them on for about 6 weeks at a time. But they just did one. It was an interview between Gustavo Dudamel, who's the current conductor for the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and John on the occasion of his 90th birthday. And what he said was turning 90 was no different than turning 80 or 70. As long as you are doing what you enjoy doing, that's going to keep you going. That's his inspiration. And amazing.
Your body still works.
Man, I never, if your body still works, just that's true. Hey, I'll go ahead and complain, okay? I was told a long time ago by Jeanette Bonosi, who put the baton in my hand for Coachella Valley Symphony in 1995, and she said, now don't expect any sympathy from these musicians, because when you start complaining about aches and pains and arthritis and joints replacements, don't expect any sympathy, because they don't consider you a member of the club until you're 80 years old. So I still have 9 years to go. So. Oh dear. Should I do it or should I not?
Go for it.
Okay, all right. This is a serious piece. It is long hair music. So I've had this wig for about 35 years. It's number 57A from the catalog, and it's identified as Tina Turner / Rod Stewart, depending on how you have it arranged. Yeah. Let's see here. How do we do this again? Anybody remember that Woody Allen movie where he's playing in a marching band? He's playing his cello, and he's running down the street, and he plays 3 notes, and he picks up the cello and runs ahead. Jerry Johnson cello plays 3 more notes and runs down. Trombones and clarinets are walking past him. Well, that's sort of what I feel like right now. But, okay, this is a sit-down piece, so I'm going to sit down. Okay. You've all heard the opera Carmen. You all know Carmen. There's a piece in there called the Habanera. Okay, now this is from the original all barnyard animal production. Okay, and so this is the Habanera as quoted in that particular version there. Okay. I love that note. Yeah. You know what I'm gonna pitch? Hello. Say it.
Yes.
That's it. There's more. These ideas come to me when I'm sleeping, okay? And maybe they should be left there. Oh, I didn't know it was time for their solo, but these chimes.
Move this over to here.
Sure, yeah.
Please.
These chimes are not just randomly hanging there. I actually bought these. Anybody remember back when what is now Middle Ridge Winery was the Squirrel's Nest?
Yes.
Well, I bought these in the Squirrel's Nest. They are actually a G-flat 6 chord, you know. And I bought them when I lived in the little house which became the Cut Above Salon down there across from the Chinese restaurant, which is now Pharaoh's, which is, everything changes in Idlewild. They keep moving things around. That's just okay. But I have kept these chimes with me ever since. And it always tells me that, yes, I will be moving back here eventually.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
Hey, I got a minute break now. Okay, you get to watch and listen to Lloyd. You'll see where I get some of my antics from. The quality of this video, considering it's 1957, is pretty amazing. Does anyone remember? It was called The Big Picture. It's how we got our news.
back in the 40s and 50s. And this was done in 1957, and it was part of a showcase of entertainers in the armed forces. And this is Sergeant Lloyd Lindroth. In 1957, he's playing two pieces, Tenderly, and then he goes into David Rose's Holiday for Strings.
Help.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll get it.
You got it?
I just have to get myself out of this.
Get yourself out of that one and I'll turn this one on.
Turn that on.
And then we're gonna have to turn the volume back up.
And then we gotta put YouTube back on.
Yes.
You have to turn the overhead lights off.
That might be nice just for this,
Turn
yeah.
these off.
Yeah, go ahead and turn the lights up.
I'll turn these off. The ones, those right there. I think that'll help. What about these?
Okay,
Because that'll turn the whole shot off. I think, wait a minute.
there we go. Search.
There.
Oh, yeah, much better.
What's time not to have my glasses? Okay.
Did you lose them again?
Yeah, they're over there somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Here.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
That helps a lot. Well, there's Herman Munster.
No, we don't need
No,
her.
we don't need Herman. Search. L is for Lloyd, LL. There he is.
There he is.
Lloyd Lindroth, Harp. Hey, just vanished again.
No, go back up to the LL.
I am.
There you go.
Here we go. And there
There
he
you go.
is. And there's his videos. And there's some other stuff he did. And there's the video right there. U.S. Army soldier plays the classical harp. Hopefully the volume's up over there.
It's not up, but I'm putting it up.
Okay. It'll start off with the big picture logo thing. Brass fanfare or something. Come on, back up. Okay, you should have it.
As soon as it finishes buffering.
It's
we'll be good.
buffering.
I got the volume up.
Okay, good. Hopefully it's not too distorted.
Our next artist comes to us from the ranks of the famous United States Army band. He's Sergeant Lloyd Lindroth. And if you're among those of us who like harp music, I think you'll enjoy this. Lloyd Lindroth.
Harps have to do a certain amount of that. Now, you'll see him every now and then in this next one. He'll look down at the floor. I think there's a piano, bass, and drums on the floor below him, accompanying some of the other acts too. Because when he stands up at the end, you'll hear a cymbal crash. That obviously isn't on stage. I have tried to learn this piece, I can't. Smile.
I don't know if you can make it out on his left hand, but he had this ring. It was something like $400,000. It was a 2.5-inch replica of a harp made out of gold and silver, and up with a 2-carat diamond on the top and outlined in 38 diamonds. And they buried it with him. I've played at his grave a few times in Las Vegas, and his partner agent even offered me there was one crick left to his right, says, "Would you like to spend eternity with Floyd?" And I said, no, I have other ideas. Thank you very much. And it went back the last time 3 years ago. Some other relative that had the same last name, sister or something, was buried next to him. I actually woke up New Year's Day in Tokyo, and I turn on CNN, and there's a story about, I recognized him right away before I turned the volume up, and he's on a treadmill. And I said, what is this all about? And I turned up the sound. He had just had a heart transplant. And the drugs they give you so that you won't reject, failed, I guess. And about 6 months later, he was on a cruise in the Caribbean, and there was a breakout of Legionnaire's disease, and that's what took him. Lloyd Lindroth. And for the last 8 years of his life, he had the most amazing gig. Any of you been to Nashville? How about in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s? If you went to the Opryland Hotel, in the lobby, okay, when Liberace died, Liberace had this thing called the Dancing Waters. It was rocker arms and jets that threw water up in time to the music with colored lights. And it was a big splashy thing. Liberace, when he started out about this same vintage, late 50s, he played amazing piano. But people didn't come to hear him play the piano. Later on, they came for the glitz and the glamour and the cars and the pianos. And
I couldn't turn the lights back on.
please, yeah. And anyway, he willed that line, 40-foot line of lights and fountains to Lloyd. Lloyd took it, had some engineers help him figure it out. They cut it in half and made 2 20-foot semicircles, one inside the other, of fountains and lights. Then from the 3-story atrium, they hung on chains a roughly 12 by 12 foot clear plexiglass stage with him on it, wearing everything that Liberace wore, rings on all his fingers, bells on all his toes, laser beams and smoke blowing through the strings. And he was paid the outrageous sum of close to $8,000 a week to play 3 20-minute shows a day, 6 days a week. That was his gig for the last 9 years of his life. The fountains and lights are sitting in a warehouse in Las Vegas right now. So I have no desire to follow that act. There's only one him, and that's just the way it is. And this brings me to a couple of announcements before I play my last 2 pieces here. ICO, Idlewild Chamber Orchestra, started last summer under the umbrella of my Desert Chamber Orchestra, which is the group that I formed after they came along in '95 and said, won't you lead our Coachella Valley Symphony for a year, because Maestro Tom Mancini, distant cousin of Henry, wants to take a 1-year sabbatical. So I said, okay, I have no training. I've never been to school for music. I don't have a degree of any kind. So, but we know you can do this. So I say, okay, I'll give it a year. Well, that year turned into 16 years. And I got a good shot in the arm, though, because my cousin, Christian Chalifour, same last name, he is the principal concertmaster for the Los Angeles Philharmonic. He came on board with the LA Phil the same month, July in '95, that I came on with Coachella Valley Symphony. So it took another 8 years, till 2003, for Jeanette and I to finally corner him in his dressing room backstage at the McCallum. And we go back there to meet him and open up his file. And you know how about people put photos of loved ones inside their cases? Well, his were all of this big white sheepdog. And the dog's name was Winifred. And I said, this is a dog person. Yeah, okay. So we invited him out finally, and he came out and he did the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto with us. And then every other year he'd come out, he did the Beethoven, he did a couple of Mozarts with us, and finally we did the Tchaikovsky. And then when he, under my orchestra, he also did the Four Seasons, Brandenburg 3 and 4. We've had a lot of fun with Martin, and we're not done with him yet. He's coming back this next February, actually, to do a concert with us down in the desert. So I started putting these pieces together, and I realized I have more musicians right here in Idlewild at the moment than I do down in the desert, because down there, people are snowbirds. You know, they're generally only there from November through April, and then they're gone. But up here, we're rough and tough. We like it. We live here. We like the snow. Not much of that lately, though, huh? Last 3 winters have been kind of sad. So. I was asked a long time ago, I said, why don't you do a Christmas album? And I said, no, I don't want to do a Christmas album. Everybody does Christmas albums. But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll put one Christmas song on my next album. So I had to think very carefully, what one do I want? Do I want something sacred? Do I want something secular? And I finally went with something secular that has an interesting story behind it. The song is I'll Be Home for Christmas. Almost didn't get published. The publishers didn't want it. It was right after World War II and going into the Korean War. And the reason they didn't want it is because they felt it was really a downer for the soldiers who wouldn't be coming home or were not able to come home for Christmas, or in some cases never came home again at all. So, and for me, home has always been like, well, you know, they say no man is an island unto himself, but when you're out there in the middle of the ocean on a cruise liner for 3 years, you really are. You know, if you had the option of having the AP wire service slid under your door every morning so you know what's going on in the world. And I did that for about 6 months. And then after a while, I'm in India, I'm in South America, I'm in Italy. I don't care what's going on in the world. My world is where I am at the moment, with the people I love, with the people I'm with, the people I'm sharing with you folks today. So I just decided that this is home for me. And if you do have my one album on the inside, there's bits and pieces of everything from working on the pipeline to playing on the Grand Canal in Venice. This one in the lower right-hand corner is the night John Lennon was shot. I played Beatles songs all night, December of 1980. And yeah, the Harp license plate. Where is it?
It's in front of
It's right this one, yeah.
Yeah.
That was my license plate in Alaska. I had to live with the last 2 letters transposed initially. It came to me as Harp. And that's, our plates were being done by the penitentiary in Portland at the time. And it was that way on the registration. I had to wait 2 months for it to come back as Harp. So when I came to California, I said, well, DMV, can I be Harp in California? Well, Harp belongs to a clown named Harp. Okay. But she's offline first. She comes back on and says, well, you can be Harpo 14. And I said, no. So I took my last name and I just said, I'll use the number 4 for the FOUR, and that'll be my plate down here. So, and no one has it yet. The only other person in California with the name is my cousin, and he doesn't want it either. So I'm going to get it back. I decided. It's when I move back here. That's part of what I'm going to do. Fiddler on the Roof. I have been trying for 3 years to produce Fiddler on the Roof. I had the Idlewild School, not Idlewild Arts, but you know, the K-8 school here. They were all behind me. They were going to pay for the royalties, and I had the whole town involved in it. And along came a slap. No one in the United States can do Fiddler on the Roof. Why? Because there's a national tour. And when there's a national tour, they lock down the production rights for amateur and any other professional or stock groups that want to do the show. Yeah, you can do it as soon as this tour closes. Well, then came COVID, and the tour got put on hold. Then we got lifted from that partially, and the tour is still ongoing. It is scheduled to be over and done with May 10th of 2023. So I have put in yet another request for license. I want to do it the 3rd week of June, either at the Butterfield Amphitheater, might be a possibility, or at the school itself. And we have someone in Idlewild here. She doesn't want. I said, you're old enough now to be Yenta, you realize. But Michelle Marsh lives here, and she played Huddle, the middle daughter, who sings Far from the Home I Love. She lives here in Idlewild. And it's just my fiddler days are behind me. She says, I told John Williams I couldn't sing, and he knew that, and he said, well, leave that to me. I'll make that work. And it's a very nice moment in the film. So we are going to do Fiddler on the Roof, and the person I got in mind for Tevye, some of you might know Derek Lewis, very fine actor, singer, played piano for many years at the, not the River Rock, the other one, Mile High Cafe. Nice gentleman, had a series, Palm Springs Follies, for many years down in the desert.
But we gotta hurry up though, because I think he's in his mid-80s now, and if we wait any longer, then he'll have to be the rabbi or somebody else. He won't be able to be Tevye because nobody would believe he would have 5 daughters who would be in their teens, yeah. At least I hope not. There are only 64 shopping days till Christmas.
Oh,
And,
jeez.
and I would put out a plea there, it would really help me tremendously if you would purchase a CD or two on the way out. And I have not been aggressive about marketing my CDs at all, the whole 25, 30 years I've been doing it. But I get interesting calls and letters from people who bought one 15 years ago and they want 6 more to send to their friends this Christmas. And that's kind of how, that's been the way it's been. So I carry them around with me when I'm performing, and I'm gonna officially wrap this up. I got one encore, but I'm gonna do I'll Be Home for Christmas. I want to really thank Mary Morris for everything she's put into this for me, and very last minute to Mary Knapp, who is the pastor here, I believe.
No, she's
No?
the president of the Bishops' Committee.
President of the Bishops Committee here at St. Hugh's, for allowing us to move our concert here at the last minute. And I don't hear it out there, but I bet if you go out to your cars, you're going to see it. There's a hurricane coming. I'm staying over one more night because I don't want to drive home with it. So I'm going to leave you with this is an instrumental only for about 10 years, and then Carl Sigmund came along and gave the lyric, and Errol Garner decided he likes the first 3 notes, and we ended up with Misty. But before Misty came Eptide. So imagine, close your eyes, and imagine you're walking along a moonlit beach late at night.
Thank you, mucho, mucho. And if anyone wants to come up and get a little closer look, or if you have questions you've always wanted, many of them will be answered in my memoirs, which doesn't have a title yet, but the subtitle is Confessions of a Mad Harpist.
How about another round of applause for Christian? Thank you all for coming. We're so glad that you were here. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, Christian CDs are at the back of the room.
I am so tired.
I must be very yeah. I've lost most of things. This particular product we had 8 years. Reunited with December. Hey!
Missed you. I know. This is Caleb. This is Wyatt.
Wyatt? Like Wyatt Earp?
Like Wyatt.
Amazing.
Caleb?
Caleb.
Yes. C-A-L-E-B? B-B, yes.
And they've got Elijah.
Elijah?
Yep.
E-L-I-J-A-H.
Association of guys.
Now you have 4, I thought, yeah.
And then our daughter, she's over there with Noah. Isabel.
That's how you guys, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, I want to have a hug. I want to have a hug. Oh, yes. I was in
Now that I've been told. She looks familiar though. I've seen her somewhere else in Iowa. Okay. When you have my host, this is like your host. You made it. I had a message from you, but I didn't know. I thought maybe you weren't coming. Trying to figure out where it was. Yeah, we just moved it Thursday night. The storm's coming in. It's supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah, you know, we made that decision Thursday night. I'm staying over. I'm actually staying in Springfield. This is where the concert was going to be. There's a small one bedroom.